the so-called National Democratic Party, which is neither national nor democratic nor a party, the rubber stamp of the Mubarak years, will itself face the fate of the RCD in Tunisia. But again, there were many who tried to manage this Egyptian revolution, to say, well, the president has gone, long live the vice president. The vice president was the torturer-in-chief of the Mubarak dictatorship. Omar Suleiman, the jailer of the Palestinian people in Gaza, the divider of the Palestinian national movement, and the torturer of the people of Egypt. But the people came back to Tahrir Square, to the avenues of Alexandria, to Suez, even to Al Arish, a place I know well. Every town and city and region in Egypt came back over and over again until one by one the ministers of the dictatorship were swept away. Omar Suleiman, the interior minister, now on trial for torture and corruption. The Prime Minister, Ahmed Shafiq, appointed in the last few days by Mubarak, trying to cling on, now swept away. The military junta, whom the West hoped might be able to hold the ring so that they could emerge with something from this revolutionary upheaval, have been confounded. Let me say this, and I say it with certainty and conviction. No future government of Egypt ever again will play the role of Israel's jailer of the Palestinian people. The siege on Gaza is finished. Hallelujah. The gates are open. And even if not declared, because this is an interregnum, when a democratic government comes to power in Egypt, it will be declared all right. And I say to the supporters of Israel in the room, it's time to listen carefully. Your days of murdering, torturing, jailing, occupying, starving, dispersing the Palestinian people are almost over. The siege, whether declared or not, is finished. The role of the Egyptians in dividing the Palestinian national movement is finished. And when sometime in the future, I refer not to the farcical so-called peace process that is now dying in the sands of the Middle East, having been on life support for many, many long years. Endless process, no peace, because no justice. No justice, no peace, however elaborate your process. But one day, this matter will return to the international agenda, and one day there will be negotiations again. But from now on, the Palestinians will be immeasurably strengthened by an Arab world that is now Arab, by an Islamic Arab world, which now regards itself with self-respect and demands the respect of others. So everything just changed utterly. The Arab regimes that were collaborating with Israel, leaving the Palestinians alone to face all of these crimes. Now there is one Arab people from the Atlantic to the Gulf, and all is changed utterly. Of course, The revolution isn't over, either in Tunisia or Egypt. It's certainly not over in Yemen, where the president has been in for 33 years. 30 for Mubarak, 33 for Ali Abdullah Saleh, the president of Yemen. But his days are coming to an end as the vast majority of Yemenis in the poorest country in the world decide that enough is enough. It's certainly not over in Bahrain, where the Prime Minister, I'm not making this up, the Prime Minister of Bahrain has been the Prime Minister since 1961. That's before the Beatles. Before the Beatles, who've been wound up for 40 years. This man has been the Prime Minister. Eat your heart out, Gaddafi. 1961 to 2011. Of course, it helps that he's the uncle of the king. And the king has been in power, or his family have, absolute power, for 231 years. Now that's a long time. But the masses are moving so decisively in Bahrain that this day, the unfreest country on the earth, Saudi Arabia, dispatched thousands of soldiers and a long armoured column of military armour tanks and other weaponized transport across the causeway in a show of support, the news said, for the beleaguered Bahraini royal family. What a gruesome twosome. The corpse-like kings of Arabia clinging together in their last days. And what happened today on that causeway? Remember that you heard it here. Saudi Arabia just lit a touch paper which will set a fire in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, which happens to be highly combustible, where all of the oil and gas is. And this interference, this invasion, that's what it is, this invasion and occupation of Bahrain will be the beginning of the end of Al Saud, as well as certainly not finished in Libya, where Gaddafi, the brute Gaddafi, and his son, looking like a high-end drug dealer off HBO's The Wire. Didn't they notice the resemblance? Stringer Bell, Saif al-Islam, they could have been played by the same man. The Gaddafi family business, well, that's what it is. 42 years in a country now of 6 million, before of 2 million, 3 million, with an ocean of gas and oil. Every Libyan should be a multi-millionaire. The public realm in Libya should be like Beverly Hills. The hospitals, the schools, everywhere, the streets, the lights, everything should be of the highest order, and anyone who's ever been to Libya walks around with their mouth open, asking themselves at least, where did all the money go? Well, a lot of it went into the pockets of the Gaddafi family and clique. 8 sons, all of them billionaires, do the maths. And of course, a lot of it went on purchasing the loyalty of foreign mercenaries now being ruthlessly deployed to crush the freedom movement in Libya. The West is now plunged into chaos. They don't know which dictators to back and which dictators to sack. Total, absolute chaos. And worse from their point of view, they decided, having backed Gaddafi, now to sack him just before he appeared to win the war. So Gaddafi is now back, whilst the West tried to get rid of him. What's going to happen now? What's the relationship going to be now? Is there going to be two Libyas? Is there going to be any so-called no-fly zones? Which, of course, are meaningless but give the impression of doing something. It's too late. The dictatorship of Gaddafi has won for now, but the people will be back. Because the burning desire for freedom. You know, it used to be claimed, friends of Israel used to say, Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East. Well, that depended which end of the telescope you were looking through, of course. If you were an Israeli Jewish citizen, yes, you had a perfect democracy. If you were an Israeli Arab citizen, you had rather less perfect democracy. If you were one of the millions of Palestinians militarily occupied for 44 years, you had no democracy at all. And if you were one of the millions of Palestinian refugees driven from their homes and living out miserable lives as refugees in neighboring countries and further beyond, you had no democracy of any kind. But insofar as Israel was a democracy, we didn't realize, most of us, that that depended on the Arabs being forced to live under dictatorship, so that that claim could be made. Israel opposed each and every one of these Arab revolutions for the reasons, or the obverse of the reasons I earlier adumbrated. They are terrified of Arab democracy because an Arab democratic government will never forget Jerusalem, will never forget Palestine. There are other countries not yet moving, but as one domino after another falls, it is bliss to be alive in this year of revolutions, 2011. And Jason Kenney, it won't be complete until you're out of office too. Yeah.